Knihu Jitra v Dženínu opravdu všem doporučuju. Já sice jsem zatížená na historii, co se týče jako studia a faktů, ale tahle kniha tu napsala Susan Abulhava a je o 5 generacích palestinské rodiny, co zažila od roku 1948. Takže pro lidi, kteří nečtou nebo nevydrží číst prostě literaturu faktu, tak tady to je ohromně silná kniha. Tak všem moc doporučuju. Český překlad Ethnic Cleansing of Palestine Ilana Papeho. To je hodně drsné. Ale je to literatura faktu a je to na základě odtajněných izraelských archivů v 80. letech. A už jste asi slyšeli o nových izraelských historicích. Ilan Pape, jsme hrdí a šťastní, že je to náš přítel a jezdí sem poměrně často. A díky Majdě a dalším lidem byly přeloženy nejenom tahle kniha, ale ještě 10 mýtů o Izraeli. A doufáme, že budou další od Ilana. Od Ilana tady máme ještě tuhle knihu, The Biggest Prison on Earth. Když mluvíme o Nakbě, tak často taky mluvíme o pokračující Nakbě, ongoing Nakba, never ending Nakba. Takže začátek okupace rok 67 je další kapitola palestinské Nakby. A opět z odtajněných izraelských dokumentů Ilan Pape popisuje, jak to bylo dlouho dopředu, roky dopředu, připravované okupace západního břehu, Gazy, Jeruzalém. Izraelští generálové tomu říkali dokončení 1948. Když v roce 1948 neměli na to zabrat celou Palestínu, tak v roce 1967 plánovali to dokončit. Ještě řeknu, jak se vždycky snaží lidé, jako speciálně na univerzitách, oddělovat okupaci a akademii a tak dále, tak když plánovali, and now I'm speaking Czech, že jo? Okay, I will shortly say it in English. When we speak about Nakba, we also speak about ongoing Nakba, because it never ended. And this book by Ilan Pape discusses the second phase of Nakba, the occupation from 1967, and it goes step by step describing from Israeli declassified documents how it was planned already from 1963 and even before actually. And I was going to say that the meeting the father of this occupation had with the leadership of Israeli politicians and army personnel was at the Hebrew University. So that's just on the note of how they always want us to separate the academia from the occupation when it comes to Israel. It's not separated. It never was. And the Hebrew University also stands on previously Palestinian land and Palestinian village, which was cleansed and destroyed. Okay. Už je tam Majda? Majdo! Ne, nebudeš zádu. Pojď za námi. Tak, už jsme kompletní. So we're complete. Prosím. Ona přinosí šla si pro drink. Okay, so let's start. As I said, the first part we will do it in English because our speakers, Moatasem Taha and Lori Lynn King, speak English. And the second part, Jitka will definitely speak in Czech, I was told. and Maida will decide in the end, but she will speak in the end, so if you don't understand Czech and you don't feel like you want to stay, we won't hold you, but you will try in English? Thank you so much. Okay. And there will be also in the end Lucka introducing Tetris, and if you feel like you want to now maybe go and see, and maybe during the talk make something for yourself, you're welcome to as well. But as the first speaker, we will have Moatasem Taha, who is Palestinian. He's a Palestinian filmmaker, currently based in Prague, where he's pursuing an MA in film directing at the Film and TV School at the Academy of Performing Arts, FAMU, after completing his bachelor's degree in photography and cinema at Witzo College in Haifa. His short films have screened at the festivals across Arab world and at international film festivals. Moatasem will introduce work of Karimeha Abbuda and Khalila Raada, who photographed Palestine and its people before the Nakby.
Hello. Okay, now it's working. So my presentation, it will be about three photographers, Khalila Raada, Karimeha Abbuda, and Fadil Saba, which they photographed in Palestine before the Nakby. The presentation called The Photographers, The Photographed, and The Photographs. And the photographers, of course, I mean the three of them. The photographed, I mean the people, the places, and Palestine in general. And the photographs, it's the image itself, because we are talking about period where the photographs were physical. So it's negative, it's something physical that you can touch. And I will also introduce kind of in general how the photography started in Palestine. So here is images of Palestine, Jerusalem, by a French photographer. And this is the year where the photography officially started, when Louis Daguerre declared that there is new medium called photography. And in this year, the photography itself, it was very limited, because it needed to expose a lot of time of to the camera, to the chemical, to be exposed. And that's why also it was kind of a limitation to photograph people. And usually, Fiske was also a painter, so they kind of make sometimes photography and they painted things, and it was difficult to photograph people. This is a later photography, 1844. And it was usually by Western photographers that comes to Palestine, and they photograph kind of the holy places, the churches, the view. And also, even when the photograph developed, they kind of still focused on the place itself, on the buildings, not on the people itself. In 1860, the Armenian photographer Isai, he founded the first photography workshop that later called the Armenian School of Photography. And then he started also kind of few Armenians, not only him. That's how the Palestinians start to learn from them photography, and also Korean. He teached Khalila Raada, which he was the first officially, or one of the two first people who started to photograph in Palestine. And his origin is from Lebanese origin, and he opened a studio, Khalila Raada studio, in 1890. So this is the three photographers, Khalila Raada, Karimeha Abbuda, and Fadil Salah. And we will start with Khalila Raada, which he started after opening the studio professionally to practice the photography. And he opened in Jaffa also, in Jaffa Street in Jerusalem. And his mostly those three photographers, they photographed everything, kind of buildings. There were no specialization in photography. And he was chosen as the official photographer for the Ottoman Empire, and also later in the British Mandate. This is part of his photos. Here you can see he showed the people, and it's very different from the Western photographers or tourist photographers that then when the Palestinians or Arab photographers, they start to focus on the people themselves. And here it's also very interesting that our archive as Palestinians, it's not with us, it's with everyone except us. So while I'm looking for photos, I entered the National Library of Israel, where we can find our photos. And here you can see negatives of Khalila Raada. Here you can see people, because it's interesting that mostly are not people. Kind of, it's very different at our archive, the photographs, because it's obvious they want to erase the people and not to show that much of people and focus on the people. And the interesting thing, they wrote that it's 43 negatives, but I didn't find 43, and they allowed us for a research to use it. So they are very kind that they are still our archive. They put in there, and they allow in circumstances to use it. Again, sorry, because it's very also important, but no, here, yeah. In the same archive of Israel, you can find also a man, which Khalila Raada took those two photos. But actually, this man is Jewish American from Russian origin, and they have their picture. And when I went to look for the poet, I found kind of he did no, sorry, but in this poet that he wrote in the early, it's from the institution, we don't have sound, but it's, sorry, okay. It's from the Institution of Heritage, Hebrew Heritage, and it's written by the same villain. And here in this poem, you can, when I read it, I went to read it because also I speak Hebrew, and then I noticed that some words in Arabic. So kind of let's assume they were inspired by Arabs, let's assume, but they acclaim that we were not there, but they are inspired by people who were not there, who do not exist. And also, it's here written that it was first version of this poem. It was called Hashabab, like in Arabic it's Shabab, the youngs. So even the first version of the poem, it was in Arabic name. And this is a kind of poem like about the Zionism dream. Now sorry for those technical a lot. And Khalila Raada, during the Nakby, he moved to Lebanon and like he died then in 1957. And the photography studio, it was destroyed and they were rescued like negatives by the friend of Khalila Raada, where he works in a bookstore, like by his daughter. Now we are moving to Karimeha Abbuda, the first woman photographer in Palestine. And she also, like her origin from South Lebanon, but they moved early and she born in Bethlehem in Palestine. And her dad traveled actually between churches, between cities, and that's what allowed her to also photograph between cities from the north to Jerusalem to the also West Bank. And she opened studio, and you can also see that she also photographed a lot of things as every photographer back then, but you can see the focus of women in Palestine and also worker women who works hard, and she focuses on them. And even like this is like the Palestinian sources, what they are focused on, that it's kind of the Palestinian gaze on the people, and it's very different from the gaze of tourists or Western photographers. And here she actually published the advertisement on the newspaper El Carmel, which was in Haifa. And here is the translation. She wrote about herself, a national woman photographer who like service like women, and she willing also to be invited to their home and photograph them. So she really cares about photographing a woman, and that she is Palestinian and national woman photographer. Now we are moving to the third photographer, Fadil Saba. He's from the north in Nazareth, and actually his dad was also a photographer. That's why, like some people says, Khalila Raada is the first one, and some Nasser Saba, the father of Fadil, the first Palestinian photographer. And he opened also a studio in Nazareth in 1990, where he was 18. His father died when he was around 5 years old, but he knew that his father was a photographer, and it's registered also in the church in Palestine. And Fadil, he started also to some research in Palestine to shoot with American institutions, but he didn't like, he also wanted to take a step of his father. And it's interesting because there were a lot of tourists that also his father started this. They were photographing Palestinian cities and print them on postcards, like his father on the British, on the Ottoman postcards, but Fadil then like on British postcards, and they have their names on it. And not here. Sorry again. So I'm going to show a little bit. It's from a documentary about, and this is kind of collection of 10 cities where Fadil and his father before him, he was photographing. You can see the cities Nazareth, Tiberias, and he can shoot them. And actually the collector, he is also Israeli collector, Boaz Woki, he speaks about those. So our archive with everyone except us. And this is also why they have access more than us, because and the absurdest thing here, that when I was looking for the archive, and you can see here Boaz, he speaks about those two photographs in the same documentary. The first one is by N.M. Saba, which is Nael Mansour Saba, the father of Fadil, before like he was photographer. And the second one with the same person, with the same place, in different time that he took for the same picture as his father. Also another photo, Fadil then. And then I was looking for photographs, and I found on eBay, like someone sells Fadil photographs on Ordway. So here is the photos. And you can see the same picture that Fadil took of the same, like of it could be a copy, but even the Galilee, like feeding place of 5,000. So it's even the same written, and they show. And here I found also my village. It's this one on the right, and like the Tabor mountain where I grew up. And even here, like it's postcard, so also you can find our archive on eBay sometimes. And I was confused to buy it or to show you. So I said, I will show you, and then I'm going to buy it.
You don't know the keywords you used to search it?
I just started to search like everywhere, and I wrote.
It says Israel. So
Yes.
Yeah.
So I wrote Palestine, and then it's, and even though in the library of like Israel here,
Yeah.
so kind of the Israeli library, so they wrote views of Palestine like 1912, but in Hebrew they wrote Tatzlomim Me'eretz Israel, the land of Israel. So they just write whatever they want, everyone. So in English they show, oh, it's Palestine, it was Palestine, but in Hebrew for their people they write land of Israel. And also Fadil, the same as other Palestinian people, he left Palestine, he was displaced, and like he also continued to photograph refugees, Palestinians, and diaspora Palestinians, but according to his daughter, her father was used to say that the Zionist Israelis, they just robbed his studio, and also Karimeha and Khalila Raada, because they wanted to take every memory and existence of the Palestinians. And they just, our archive, and also they did it also when they invade Lebanon in '82 in cinema, because we have the cinema archive, the cinema unit, so they just invaded and took our archive to them, and then they published just few photos. So, like for us, it was for me also important to tell the stories, not only the photographs of those photographers, also their own stories, because the photographers and the photographed and the photographs, they are share the same fate, which is displacement and erasures, and we are everywhere around the world because of the continuous Nakba, and that's it for me, and I would like to thank you all.
So, thank you so much, Moatasem. Moatasem was speaking and showing us how Palestine looked before the Nakba. And as you probably know, over 500, well, maybe even 600, because lately I've been studying the maps of Palestine. What's the name of the Palestinian historian who made the maps, the Atlas of Palestine? Just jumped out of my mind. But he said over 600 actually villages were either wiped out, totally the people expelled, or they were destroyed. They were destroyed on purpose, of course, so the people couldn't come back. And for you who are Czech, it should be known to you that they were using firearm, but it's like an arm which throws flamethrowers. And those flamethrowers to burn the houses in these villages came from Czechoslovakia. Also grenades and other equipment. Czechoslovakia also trained the pilots. Before I read The Ethnic Cleansing of Palestine, I didn't know they already had planes. They were bombing the cities. Haifa, they were shooting over people's heads to make them panic. And they were, of course, on the radio saying, you know, you better leave, or Deir Yassin is coming to you. Everyone knows what happened in Deir Yassin, 9th of April, so way before May 14, when Israel, or the Zionists, called independence. On April 9th, the Zionist militias or terrorist organizations, what was the name? Hagana, Irgun, Lehi. Actually, Hagana told them, do it, and they did it. And then Hagana came to help them clean up. They massacred Deir Yassin. Women, children, elderly, just everyone. And the survivors, some of the survivors, before they were killed, they were taken by these militias to Jerusalem to show them to other Palestinians, to scare them. So, and I repeat, this was April. It's important, that's one of the points I want to make here, because I want to diffuse again some of the myths about Nakba. And one of the major ones is that Israel was, or the Zionists were only defending themselves. The people who fled because there was war, or they were told to by their leaders. That's completely diffused by facts. Even Benny Morris, actually, who is one of the so-called Israeli new historians, and wrote a number of books based on the archives, Israeli archives, like The Righteous Victims. Proved that this is totally bogus, the thing that Palestinians will tell people to leave and come back later. That totally didn't happen. But also that there was a thing called Plan Dalet, Plan D. And that was approved in March. So again, May 14 is when Israel calls independence. And after that, the Arab countries, neighboring countries, and others invade Palestine to actually, not to what the Zionists are saying, they came to wipe us out to the sea and so on. What actually they came to do was to protect the Palestinians who were being ethnically cleansed before 14th of May, because close to 300,000 Palestinians were already cleansed when Israel called independence on May 14th. This is very important. It proves, and there's another thing. They had the armies, the Arab armies. They were told to only protect the parts which the UN partition plan, something like Munich dictate for us, the partition plan left for Palestinians. So they actually gave the Zionists more. They gave them 56%. But they were, from the beginning of ethnic cleansing, they were already seizing the land which was supposed to even stay Palestinian. And one more thing about this partition plan, because it's sometimes like automatically understood that the partition plan should have meant that Palestinians will go to one, it was actually two parts of Palestine. If you look at the map, it was not possible to even make it work. But people think that the Palestinians should go there and the Jews should keep what the map showed them on this partition plan. But even that was not the partition plan. The people should have stayed where they were. It was supposed to become 2 states, but with the people who were residing there. So it's not like the partition plan gave the Zionists the right to ethnically cleanse part of Palestine. That's one thing. Also, this is Noura Erakat. She's a Palestinian scholar, lawyer. She wrote Justice for Some. And if there's some lawyers or you're interested in like legal arguments, I discovered with Noura that it was even against the international law. This whole thing of not just, of course, Balfour Declaration, totally, but to put it into the mandate for Palestine, which the Brits got from the predecessor of the UN, the League of Nations. Because the League of Nations, in its covenant, there is Article 22, and this whole thing, the League of Nations, was there to help guide the transition of colonies, which were then under Ottoman Empire, to lead these countries to its independence. And the Article 22 was saying that and protecting that. And the fact that the Brits managed to put the Balfour Declaration with the Brits into the mandate for Palestine, which again had the Brits, this was against this whole frame of international law. So it was even illegal then. But somehow we're told, this was decided, this is international law. No, it wasn't. And also we're told that the Palestinians, they were so greedy, they did not accept this partition plan, and somehow because of that, there was the war and they got what they wanted. So one thing, they lived there for centuries. They worked the land for centuries, even millenniums. So this was not right by any paper, any colonial decision. But even, I was again surprised to find out, and it was first with Ilan, I think it was mentioned in 10 myths about Israel. But then I dig deeper and deeper, and I found more information about this. Palestinians were well politically organized, already like from 30s definitely. And they were trying so hard to appeal to the colonial power, Britain, and they were trying to ask for independence. They petitioned. There was organization. There was a Palestinian conference. Then there was a higher Arab committee. They all asked for a democratic state. And they were not asking to kick the Jews out. They asked for one state on democratic basis. It was actually first introduced by the Brits, this idea, in 1928, I think was the first. And when the Zionists thought that the Palestinians would refuse it, they pretended like they were going to accept it. And when the Palestinians actually accepted it, the Zionists refused it. Because the agenda of making Palestine just Jewish or exclusively Jewish was there since the beginning of Zionism. I brought one book. Oh, where is it? This one. Yes. It's by a Palestinian historian, Noor Masalha, and he documents this. And there are others I found actually recently. Yaakov Rapkin, he's a Canadian professor. And here he documents from the mouth of the Zionist what was the agenda all along. And here actually in this book, Israel in Palestine, he documents the the Jewish opposition to Zionism. And here I will transfer to our next speaker, who's Laurie Lee King, because Laurie is Jewish, is Arab, is Irish, and she definitely has the revolution and the opposition to all what's wrong and inhumane in her blood. So I did want to give you some facts which you may or did not have about Nakba. But I want to ask Laurie, because we're, as you probably see here, we're like Palestinian, Jewish, Czech people coming together and trying to not only educate people about the history, but show how we're connected, and we were always connected. Let me just say, Laurie will speak about the opposition or resistance, Jewish resistance to Zionism.
Thank you very much. Thank you. As Jana mentioned, I am in fact Irish, Arab, and Jewish. By training, I am a genocide scholar. And just because I'm always reminded that God has a sense of humor. Some of you know this, some of you do not. My birthday is also October 7th. Yeah, right? And after my recent trip to Palestine, I was also banned by Israel from ever coming back due to my, quote, history and ongoing anti-Israel activities. I'm a security threat. So
Good for you.
I have so many questions, though, because I grew up hearing that this land was supposedly my birthright. Right, so is it my birthright or am I banned? So many questions. So many questions. We were talking earlier about, are we going to do this in English? Are we going to do this in Czech? I am so sorry that I don't speak Czech, but on behalf of my Irish ancestors, I will say Foilcha, welcome. On behalf of my great-grandmother, who would just disown me if I did not say merhaba and ahlan wa sahlan, which is like very warm greetings. And before we get started, I just want to offer some key distinctions. How many of you here have heard that Zionism and Judaism are the same thing? and that you cannot criticize the state of Israel without being anti-Semitic.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it is like so exhausting, and I am so sorry that is out there, because I think it is one of the greatest lies that has been peddled in modern times. And unfortunately, it's also one of those things, you know, like on social media, or if you're supposed to be using your inside voice and then you use your outside voice, like once it's out there, you know, you can't get it back, right? So hopefully in the next few minutes that we have together, I can offer some key distinctions for us. How does that sound?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I am proof that Judaism and Jews can exist beyond Zionism, right? Just ask Israel, right? My greatest fans, Judaism itself, that term, per my understanding and study and my lived experience, Judaism is a religion, right? Judaism, or Jewishness itself, was also a culture, right? And it's a people. Does anybody know where the name Israel originated?
Is it like the son of Abraham, Jacob?
Yes. And what happened? Do you remember what happened in the story?
Oh, I really
He
don't.
was fighting with the angel.
Yes. So Jacob, right, the son of the patriarch, was wrestling with an angel. The story goes, right? And because he was so strong and exhausted, he was renamed Israel. And that means one who struggles with God, right? And when we think about struggle, we think about it physically, but when we think about struggle, how else do we think about struggle? Social struggle, political struggle. What about spiritual struggle? Right? A spiritual struggle. We're wrestling with God. And what does that mean? Right? The Jews were supposed to be living under a covenant. How many people have heard that? Right? You're supposed to be, right? And this is where people get the idea that the Jews are chosen. Have you ever heard that? They are just like God's
Too many
chosen
times.
people. Unfortunately, that idea is right up there with the other one that criticizing the nation state of Israel is anti-Semitic, right? Because what that is actually referring to is God picking these people who were just wandering around in the middle of the desert, and the matriarch and the patriarch couldn't have children. God's having these conversations with Abraham. Sarah's 120 years old. She hasn't had a child yet. An angel appears to her and says, God is blessing you with a child, and your descendants are going to be as numerous as the stars in the sky. And so what does she do? She laughs because this is so amazing. She just can't even believe it, right? Well, what were they chosen for? Right? Well, they were actually chosen for living into creation, the spirit of creation, creating a better world, bringing new things into existence, and stewarding that creation, engaging in world repair, or as it's said in Hebrew, in tikkun olam. Have you ever heard that?
Yes.
That phrase, right? That just means like world repair, right? The whole idea that Jewish resistance to nationalism or Zionism is not modern, or that it's external, is a myth, because it has always existed. It emerges from deep Jewish traditions in diasporism, universalism, socialism, anti-fascism, anti-messianism, and historical memory. And so much, in fact, that there are many. Has anybody heard of the Jewish holiday Passover? What anybody know? What is Passover supposed to symbolize?
Coming out from slavery to freedom.
Right, coming out of slavery to freedom. It is supposed to be the ultimate story of liberation, of being under oppression, physically, spiritually, emotionally, and being liberated. It's supposed to be this eternal return to that idea and to remembering it. And sacred Jewish liturgy, if you go to a Reformed temple on a Friday night, there is a piece of liturgy that is read every Friday night. And it says, standing on the parted shores of history, we remember that we were once slaves in Egypt. And the only way to reach a better world is by joining hands and crossing over. Right? And so when you think about joining hands and crossing over, does that sound like a singular thing that you're supposed to be doing or something that you're supposed to be doing in a relationship?
Together.
Together, right? And there's this whole idea that's written and woven into all the liturgy about togetherness, about remembering your own oppression and therefore not doing it to somebody else. There is a famous parable, and that is that there were two very famous rabbis, and when the Jews were first exiled out of Judea, some people said, yeah, screw you, we're not leaving, we're staying in Jerusalem, and the other group of people went to Babylon, right? And they set up the whole great, amazing culture in Babylon. And so out of those two schools emerged our sacred book called the Talmud, right? And the Talmud is basically, if you don't ever believe that Jews love arguing, the Talmud is like a 500-year-long argument. One volume is from Jerusalem, one volume is from Babylon, and it spans over 3,000 volumes, and it is rabbis arguing about the interpretation of the Torah, right? And it's also filled with just amazing little snippets of stories. And one of the stories is this. A man wants to study Torah, and so he goes to Rabbi Shammai, and he says, teach me the whole of Torah while I stand here on one foot. And Rabbi Shammai is so offended, he kicks the man out, and he's like, oh, what, you are a blasphemer, you're a heretic, get out of here. Like, how dare you waste my time like this, right? So he goes and he finds Rabbi Hillel, and he asks, okay, teach me the whole of Torah while I stand here on one foot. And Rabbi Hillel says, that which is harmful to you, do not do to another. The rest is all commentary. Now go study. Right? And that idea carries over into Jewish, not just fun stories like that, but into Jewish ritual objects that are supposed to be cornerstones of daily life so that you do not forget that and you do not forget where you came from and that oppression and the cost of doing it to someone else. Any of you have Jewish friends and you've been to Jewish people's houses and you see something hanging on the right side of their door?
Mezuzah.
A mezuzah. Anybody know what's inside? Yeah.
Supposed to be the Torah scrolls.
There is a scroll inside, and there is a specific scripture that is inside. Anybody know what that scripture says? That scripture says, basically, love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, all your mind, and all your strength. Love your neighbor as yourself. So important is this that you will write it on the doorposts of your home. You will inscribe it in the hearts of your children. You will put it around your wrists and around your head. So if you ever see Orthodox Jewish men wrapping black leather straps around them at different prayer times, that's what they're doing. It's a remembrance of that. And those are called tefillin. So why am I telling you all of that? Based on just those tiny things, things that every child is told that you grow up learning, imagine the dissonance you can feel when you grow up and you start studying things like the nation state of Israel, a big dissonance starts to occur, right? But what happens in psychological terms is this. Any sociologists in here? Okay, there is a concept that is called identity fusion, right? Sounds like, something that will happen in a physics lab, right? And it kind of is, right? Because it's meant to meld like atoms together. And that is from the time that you are small, right? Instead of going to church on Sunday, Jewish kids who are observant, they get sent to Hebrew school on Sunday, right? And so you learn the Aleph Bet, you learn Jewish history, you learn all of these things, right? But one of the things that you also start doing is from the time that you're about 3 years old, they will give you colored pencils, right? Or pieces of colored paper, and what do you think they're having you make? Any guesses? A Jewish flag, the Israeli flag, I should say. And so you're taught that Israel is you are Israel, and this is your homeland, right? And you have these ties there, right? Well, psychologists know over time, as this goes on and on and on over the course of a person's life, that identity becomes fused, right? And has anybody here ever confronted a Zionist?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, right? I'm in the right room, right? What happens when you start to challenge a Zionist? What happens?
They call you an anti-Semite.
They call you an anti-Semite.
Victim card.
What else?
Terrorist.
What?
Call you a terrorist.
They taught you a terrorist, right?
They take it very personally, emotionally.
It's an emotional response, right? It is not based in logic, right? Because why? When something is embedded like that, psychology tells us it hits that primordial reptile part of our brain that you cannot divorce from one another, right? It becomes fused as part of you. Again, it is an emotional response, not a logical response. But here is one of the crazy things, right? How many of you have heard that Jews have always supported the state of Israel? Have you ever heard that? Right? Yeah, that is just not true. That's not true at all. Zionism emerged in the late 19th century in Europe, like right where we are now, right? Like right in Central Europe. Primarily, here's the kicker, right? What's the whole claim to Israel?
3,000 years ago.
It was promised. Like, who promised it?
The galaxy far, far away.
Right. So, like apparently God, said, this land is yours. Here's the kicker, okay? All of the main Zionists who were writing, the guys who were writing the political ideology of Zionism, they were all atheists. You can't make this shit up, you guys. You just you really, really can't. So they were mostly atheists, right? But here's the thing. Jews had already been existing for millennia without Zionism, right? Oh my God, how is that even possible, right? I know, it's absolute crazy, but it was happening, right? So Jews were living in diaspora all over. Right, and in fact, there are contemporary Jewish scholars. There is a well-known, either loved or hated, rabbi in the United States, Shaul Magid, and Shaul Magid wrote this whole book about Jewish diasporism, right? And Shaul Magid says, our whole identity is based on diasporism, right? It's how we remember that we need God and that God covers us, and that our whole missive in the world is to go out and live into world repair, right? We make a home wherever we are. Why? Because God meets us there. And that is the core of Jewish teaching and ethics, right? There is recently now, the whole Zionist, anti-Zionist thing has been such a split in American Judaism. We now have a movement that has made a new Jewish denomination called the Diasporic Jewish Denomination. And anybody want to guess what its first tenet is? I am a co-founder of the congregation in Atlanta. The first tenet of it is based in Palestinian liberation. That the land that the nation state of Israel is calling Israel has actually always been Palestine. We can go back and we can find, I promise you in Palestine, you can find maps of the land of Palestine dating way back. Palestine is mentioned in writings that you can trace up to 12,000 years ago. Herodotus actually, the great father of history, the study of history, actually mentions Palestine as well. And so Jews, the whole idea about Israel is that when Jews were finally the last purging out of the empire, when the Romans took over in 70 CE, anybody like study in church or in religious history, the temple, the old Jewish temple, like the temple of the Torah, right? Jewish life was centered around temple life, right? Like it was just like you all heard the thing like the shtetl, right? Traditional Eastern European Jewish villages. Life was centered around the temple. After Jews left Jerusalem the last time, there was no big temple where everybody gathered, so everybody was just living in diaspora. And that's when you went into something called the rabbinic period, meaning that it was just based on teachings, and it was the teachings and the rituals and the culture that were holding you together. So where did the Jews go? Right? There was never something called the land of Israel. It was just encampments of where, like the 12 different offshoots of the tribes of the people called Israel lived, right? And then they all dispersed, right? And so where'd they go? The answer is they went everywhere. They went all over the world. Lived all over the world. There were a couple of really notable expulsions. Say like Spain's a big one, right? And so there are, if you can think of any nationality, any ethnicity, any variation in the melanin in our skin, there are Jews from there. Interestingly, anybody associate the Caribbean with Jews? No. Well, okay, fun fact. During the Avion Conference does anybody remember the Avion Conference, what that was about? Lead up to World War II. Basically, there were 22 world leaders, everybody, the cat was out of the bag. Everybody knew what was happening. Everybody knew about the Holocaust. Nobody wanted to intervene, right? So 22 world leaders get together and they're like, oh my God, what are we gonna do about this Jew thing? Like, where can we send them? Like, the Roma are getting like really pesky for us too. And then like the Poles are getting antsy. Like, what are we gonna do, right? Nobody wanted them, right? And there was one nation that said, you know what, we'll take them. We'll go ahead and take them, but it's gonna come at a cost. Like, we've got this development that we need to be working on. And so similar to in the United States, after slavery ended, there was the promise that you would give all the freedmen 40 acres of land and a mule to make a new house. They gave this deal to the Jews if they would leave Europe. Anybody want to take a guess as to what country was like, yeah, we'll do it? No, Dominican Republic, which is super ironic at the time because they had a dictator there, Rafael Trujillo, right? And he was a US-backed dictator, right? So that was super ironic. But in fact, our president at the time remarked, he might be a son of a bitch, but he's our son of a bitch, right? You know, and hence we go. It is like, we know that Netanyahu is more than a son of a bitch, but you know, he and our Trump are right there together. So see, like the US has a long history of that. But my point is that diaspora has been Jewish civilization. And have you heard the terms used by Israel, and by Israel, of course, I mean the nation state, the made-up state, to delineate Jews. Israel would have you believe there's like just 2 or 3 categories of Jews. Have you heard Ashkenazi? What does Ashkenazi mean?
European,
Eastern Europe. What does Sephardic mean?
Arab, Jews. No, Spanish Jews. Spanish Jews.
Right, the Iberian Peninsula, right? So Spain and Portugal, Moorish, right? And then Mizrahi, what does that mean?
That's Arab Jews.
Yes, it's supposed. Correct, right? North Africa, the Middle East, actually like Western Asia. But these are terms like the Ashkenazi, Sephardi, Mizrahi. Those are made to sound Hebrew when I say them. Are they not? Yeah, there's a reason for that, right? I disown that Mizrahi term. I'm an Arab. I am proudly an Arab. My family is from Iraq and Syria. Some people say there were some affairs happening with a couple of people in Tunisia. And knowing my family, I believe it. I believe it all. At any rate, I am half Arab and very proud of that. But these distinctions were given by Israel. Right? And as we know, even Netanyahu's last name is not Netanyahu, it's Milkowski. He's from Poland, right? Sounded it to try to sound more Hebrew. And Hebrew itself was a dying language that was not resurrected until the 1880s. Anybody know that? Yeah, right? So Hebrew itself was a dying language because the Jews who were living in diaspora, they were intermarrying, speaking the language, adopting local customs, and putting their own spin on it, right? So it was less about a form of state power of how Jews were surviving than it was that of carrying on memory, having mutual aid, and being able to adapt, right? And the whole idea of political Zionism as it emerged in the 19th century was in response to the nation-state movement, right? After World War I, coming especially after the heels of World War II, right? And so in response to colonization, what was happening? There was a lot of racialization that was happening, racial categories, racial hierarchies, right? And Jews everywhere had started pushing back against those things. There is, Zionism emerged not because Jews agreed on it. It emerged because Jews were arguing about what their survival should look like in cohesion and as a whole people group, right? For Orthodox Jews and for anti-Zionist Jews, Jews believe that sovereignty should not be established before the coming of the Messiah. Who knows when that's going to be? Absolutely no one, right? As I mentioned, the whole point of the covenant is living into the world repair and creation, so much so that there's a parable that says, if the Messiah comes and you're planting a tree, finish planting the tree and then get up and go greet the Messiah, right? Why finish planting the tree? Because the tree is going to live longer than you, and you are leaving something else behind that can nourish the rest of the world. Nationalism also risked solidarity, right? And Judaism itself is against that, is against the formation of a national state, right? Being a nation state project was not viewed as a fulfillment, right, of the coming Messiah or coming peace, but it was viewed as a theological rupture. And here we get into the labor movements that were happening, right, in the early 20th century, the Jewish Bund, right, fighting against fascism and nationalism. We have those. There's the term like Doikat, which means here-ness, right? And it means that you are also standing and fighting wherever you are, right? It is a righteous fight. There is a Jewish theologian who wrote extensively about the history of the Holocaust by the name of Yehuda Bauer. He's also a rabbi. And he invokes the word Amidah. The Amidah is a sacred prayer that's also said every Friday night. You're facing east towards Jerusalem. You are bowing, right? You are welcoming the Sabbath bride. He spins it and says that should also be our response to injustice in the world. That we should invoke the sacred name of Amidah and the Amidah prayer because it is that. Between 1938 and 1978, there were organized programs across Western Europe and the United States to silence anti-Zionist voices in the Jewish community. So much so that the Jews who had political power and access to it started paying politicians. I mean, can you believe that, right? You know, and it grew into this great big thing called AIPAC. Anybody ever heard of AIPAC? 395 out of 410 people in the House of Representatives in the United States take money from AIPAC. 51 out of 60 senators take money from AIPAC. What does that tell you about the power of the lobby? AIPAC also offers every incoming senator or congressperson a free 3-week, all expenses paid trip to Israel that's carefully curated for them, right? This machine is rolling, rolling, rolling. Now, AIPAC has worked to help write legislation to make criticism of the state of Israel as part of the definition of anti-Semitism, the national definition of anti-Semitism. Certain states have adopted it, certain haven't, but what's happening now, it's a group of agencies called the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, and they have written this, and the Trump administration itself has adopted it, and the Trump administration has made it contingent for colleges and universities who want to keep receiving federal funding to sign on to this definition, right? Why should we be scared about this, aside from the obvious things? Right, it's an anti-Semite, like without definition, right? And there are so many people pushing back on this, but how does this relate out? Those of you who I had a chance to meet during my time here last year and last fall, maybe remember that I have been removed from 2 positions at 2 different universities. I lost 2 fellowships over my activism. And here's how this translates. It is the college advancement office will receive a phone call from somebody and they will say, hey, your faculty advisor to the Jewish Student Union is on the social media and she's wearing a keffiyeh. She is making the environment unsafe for Jewish students and I'm not giving you any more money until you fire her, right? Or a student will put up a flyer about BDS that will say, do you know where your hummus comes from? Is your hummus supporting genocide, right? And it will be hung on the English department board. Nonetheless, I will be summoned by the college president to ask if I put students up to it, maybe. But you know, my answer, well, of course not. So the college made it a policy that everything that gets hung on a department billboard now has to be approved by the head of that department and have a special stamp on it, or it gets taken down, right? So like inch by inch, dissenting voices are being taken away. The ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, whose original founder worked with Jewish organized crime units to help fight fascist nationalist groups in the United States during World War II. He'd be rolling it over in his grave right now because now the Anti-Defamation League has made an anonymous portal where students, if they feel threatened on their campus, if they feel like they've been a victim of anti-Semitism, can report their professors and report their college administration, report their fellow students I can't tell you how many times I've been reported. By this point, it's more than I can count. But it will be for things like the student will find that flyer and take it to the college administration, take a picture of it and send it to the ADL. Or it'll be a nice day and the art students are out and they're making chalk and there'll be hashtag Free Palestine. And one of the Zionist professors will come, take a picture of that, send it to the ADL, and then write the college president and say, see, this is just more proof of how anti-Semitic this university is and how unsafe it is for Jewish people here, right? So what we're doing with quashing that dissent is not just taking away freedom, freedom of speech, academic integrity, honesty, right? What we're also doing is allowing a whole new generation to conflate being uncomfortable when challenged with a belief, right? To equate that with not being safe, right? It becomes about keeping an ideology, keeping in line. If you've been following the immigration crackdowns in the United States, one thing that I hope our nation learned is that for the majority of white people, I hope they got that their whiteness will no longer protect them, right? Both Renee Good and Alex Pretty were white. And it's supposed to be like, you know, the pinnacle of safety in the United States, a white woman. Renee Good was shot in the face in broad daylight. And Alex Pretty was also shot, and he was a veteran, right? And a healthcare worker, both of the things that we esteem. This is, right, Nazism by just another name, right? And so you can put in nationalism, you can put in Zionism, any of the isms, really, right? I believe that I will leave you with this. For me as a Jew, and the way that I understand my faith, the way that I understand the sacred teachings and interpret them, the way that I live my life, the way that many other Jews are living their lives, but you don't see us because we don't have the money and the platforms to fight like the AIPAC people do, and the Trump people do, and the Netanyahu people do. I firmly believe that resistance to tyrants is obedience to God, right? Resistance to tyrants is obedience to God, and that standing up and fighting against the pharaohs of today is my obligation. It is the rent I pay for living on this planet. And I can think of no better honor and more righteous fight than to fight with my Palestinian family and to stand with them. And I am beyond honored every time I get to come and be here with you. I have to come to Prague to be able to give the kind of lectures and public talks I want to. So thank you, as always, for having me.
Thank you, Lauren. Maida it's so nice that she was speaking in English. And I said that we also want to make you feel and understand what it's like to be a stranger in your own country. And you know, Maida is one of the major translators from Hebrew, and she also happens to translate Palestinian authors who write in Hebrew, or there's one special one, one Kashua. So I will let Maida to take the floor, and then we will hear from Jitka Jeníková, who's an Arabist.
Hello everyone, can you hear me? Yes. I hope. I will try to speak to the microphone. I was told that I have to speak in English.
Yeah, no,
my English is not as good as you would expect, but I can use it as an alibi that if I don't speak so interestingly or so good, it's because of my weak language abilities. So my name is Magdalena Jehličková, and I am a translator of Hebrew, and from Hebrew, so I have translated a number of Israeli authors, and I will tell you a few things about my own background because it somehow corresponds to what Laurie was talking about beforehand. I come from a family with a partly Jewish background, and I was raised and lived until my quite adult life as someone who is persuaded in Zionism, and it took me quite a lot of time to understand and to look through the propaganda that I was raised in. And I have to say that I owe to my actually Jewish friends and also even Israeli friends that helped me to understand better the Palestinian perspective and the Palestinian story. We are, and I want to say also, because Laurie was talking about that I am now a part of initiative or organization, very small organization that is a group of anti-Zionist Jews, one and only of its kind in our republic, which is called Jewish Voice of Solidarity. So we are glad to be here and visit our Facebook page, check out for yourself what we are doing and what we are posting, and if you are ever interested to join us in our events, we will be very happy. Actually, one of our documents that I will maybe point to that is interesting in the context of what Laurie was speaking about is a document that was written by our member Joe Feinberg, who couldn't make it tonight to be here with us. And Joe Feinberg wrote a document that was later translated to several languages, including Czech, but he himself wrote it in English because he is an American Jew. And the document is called Declaration of Independence of Diaspora. And it's about declaring that not just Israel, but also that diaspora deserves an attention, and it's our identity, and it's open actually not only for Jews, but it's a way of being in the world that is open to actually all the people, all the peoples, all the races, all the religions, all the non-religions in the world's society. And now about the subject that I will be speaking about. It is an author that writes in Hebrew that I have translated one of his books, and I have edited or written afterward to his other books, and his name is Syed Kashua. If you are interested in him after I present a little bit his life and work, you can find his books definitely in English, but also in Czech. All his 4 novels that he has written were translated into Czech. So Syed Kashua is an interesting figure and interesting person, not only because of his writings, but also because of his story that I will present here. He was born in 1970s in a Palestinian village called Tyra, which is in Israel, in the state of Israel, in Palestine 48, where in a region which is called the Triangle, where most of the villages and towns are Palestinian. He is from a Muslim background, from a normal family, not very rich, not very educated, but he himself was had the chance to study in a Hebrew high school, in a grammar school that was considered and is still considered as one of the best high schools in Israel, and which is obviously open normally only to Jewish students, but in those years they had a special opening for two they call Arab students or Palestinian students with Israeli citizenship, and he was chosen as one of them. So in the 1980s he studied in this Israeli Hebrew grammar school. You have to understand also that in Israel, because it's a very nationalistic state, everything goes according to the ethnicity of people. So also the school system in Israel is divided into schools for Jews and schools for Arabs, and they are never mixed and they never really meet, which means the society remains deeply divided. And even though Palestinians with Israeli citizenship do have many or much better situation or much better rights than Palestinians that are living in the occupied territories, they still are considered outcasts or people that are not part of the society. And this is also reflected in the fact that the schools are divided into Arab and Jewish schools. But the story of Said Kashoa is exceptional, and because he had the chance to study at Israel school, but this experience was not a very pleasant one for him, or at least not in the beginning, because he has experienced a lot of racism, a lot of stereotypes, a lot of very humbling experiences during his study. This school was also boarding school, so he could stay there all the week. He only could come home for the weekends, and it took him some time to be accepted by his fellow students. He later described all this experience in his first novel, which is called Dancing Arabs. And he wrote this book in Hebrew. The reason why he wrote it in Hebrew and not in Arabic, and he continued to write in Hebrew and not in Arabic also in his other works, was that actually and he explains it himself this way, that most of the books that he has read in his lifetime, where he read them in Hebrew because he studied in Hebrew, this Hebrew school. So it's not his maternal language, but it's a language in which he was, in which he got his higher education. And that's why his literary language could only be Hebrew. He says he's not capable of writing in literary Arabic because he doesn't have enough education for that. And in this first book that I said was called Dancing Arab, in Czech it was published as Tančící Arabové, if you want to find it out. He starts with describing his childhood in this Arab village, and the family remembrances also, or family stories about the Nakby, and how the family was able to stay in the village even after it was conquered by the Zionist forces. Then he describes the stories of his father, who was a part of a resistance when he was young. And then he wrote the story of himself, who is not anymore fighting or resisting like his father and grandfather was, but is on the other way. He is trying to become a member of Israeli society. But becoming a member of Israeli society for a Palestinian, if he really wants to be part of it, it means you have to become like the majority. You have to speak Hebrew fluently. You have to look like a Jew, dress like a Jew. Everything that he tried to do while he was studying at this grammar school in his teenage years, he tried to become a part of the society. But all the time in this book you can see the society keeps reminding him that he is not them. He is someone else. He is the stranger. They laugh at him about the music he listens to, about the clothes he wears, and so on, about his accent, obviously. So he tries to become a Jew, to become like a Jew, to become someone who is accepted, and he even gets in a romantic relationship with one girl in this school, and he falls in love deeply with her, but she is told by her mother that she can have this boyfriend, this Arab boyfriend, only for the time that they are in this boarding school, and after the school finishes, after they are 18 and they leave the school, she has to find someone Jewish. This also is described in the book, and the book goes on to his adult life when he falls into deep depression, because he is again thrown out of the society that he wanted to be part of. And he has a Palestinian wife, and he is somehow ashamed of her, and so on. There is this deep feeling of, I am not the person that is accepted. And it's a very interesting, I think, obviously his first novel is in a big part autobiographical, but it's also a literary work, and I don't think we can make an equation between himself as a person, as Said Kashua, and his autobiographical hero. But he tries to describe this feeling of being a stranger in your own country, which was something that gained him a lot of popularity and a lot of success in, let's say, leftist Israeli circles. His first book was a bestseller, and he became very famous because of that, and he became also a screenwriter for TV and columnist for the daily Haaretz, and became a person who was really influential. And the reason why he was so popular in the Israeli reading public was probably because the experience he was describing was reminding of the experience of the Jews in diaspora, of being one who doesn't fit in, being one who is constantly reminded that he is not he has not the right religion or right ethnicity. He is not one of them. So this is something that appealed to the Jewish subject in this way, and it's also interesting because, as we know, also a famous Palestinian intellectual, Edward Said, also was talking about Palestinian being the Jews of our era. Said Kashua later wrote other books, and all of them were somehow related to his own experience. And in the year 2014, when he was already an established journalist, writer, celebrity, we can even say, and he was living as one of the few of his kind as a Palestinian in a Jewish neighborhood in Western Jerusalem, where all his neighbors were Jews, and he sent his kids to Jewish schools, and he hoped that somehow, or was hoping that somehow, this was possible, to become an equal citizen or equal part of society as an Arab in Israel. But in the year 2014, as probably we all remember, there was one of the biggest, most terrific attacks on Gaza in operation, which was, what was it, Castlet, I suppose? Or no, I don't remember the names of the operations.
That was the first
Yeah,
one, because
yeah.
there's H, something H.
It was one of the worst, with like 2,000 Palestinians killed in Gaza. But it's all started with abduction of 3 Israeli settler students or teenagers who were killed. That they were abducted and kidnapped and later found killed. And this was the reason why some weeks later the so-called operation in Gaza started. But in these weeks between the abduction or the kidnapping and the start of the war, there was a huge surge of racism against Palestinians, against Arabs in Israel. And Said Kashua felt that he could not keep or could not stay in Israel safely with his family, because he was just walking in the streets and was hearing people chanting death to all Arabs and so on. So because in that year he was invited for, I think, a semester or 1 year as a lecturer to a university in the United States, he decided he will go there with his family, not for 1 year, but to stay there forever. That he was not able or was not willing to go back to the country that he was born in and that he loved so deeply. And his last novel that was published, I think 4 or 5 years ago in English, or in Hebrew, and then translated into Czech, he already, and this book is called Tracking Changes in English, Sledování změn in Czech. He already writes about his experience being like exiled from Palestine, which for him meant a sort of second exile, because his first exile was being in Palestine, which was Israel, as someone who is a stranger and as someone who tries to become a member of society. This is why he was suddenly not even part of the Palestinian society and not part of the Israeli society. He was someone who is in between and does not belong to any of those groups. So I invite you very strongly to read some of his books that are very strong literary testimonies to this feeling and to this experience. And for finishing, or for as the last part of this short presentation, I hope it was short. I would like to read you an excerpt from an article that he wrote and that was published by The Guardian, which is called "Why Do I Have to Leave Israel?" And I think it's a strong text that somehow summarizes what he was talking about, which means hope that Israel might somehow become a country, a democratic country that is a home for everyone and not just for the chosen ethnicity. So I will read in my bad English, sorry. It's an excerpt, so it's not from the start. I will try start somewhere in the middle. When I was 14, I saw a library for the first time. 25 years ago, my math teacher in the village of Tira, where I was born, came to my parents' home and told them that next year the Jews would be opening a school for gifted students in Jerusalem. He said to my father that he thought I should apply. It will be better for him there, I remember the teacher telling my parents. I got in, and when I was the age of my daughter, which is 14, I left my home to go to a Jewish boarding school in Jerusalem. It was so difficult, almost cruel. I cried when my father hugged me and left me at the entrance of the grand new school, nothing like I have ever seen in Tira. I once wrote that the first week in Jerusalem was the hardest week of my life. I was different, other. My clothes were different, as was my language. All of the classes were in Hebrew. Science, Bible, literature. I sat there not understanding one word. When I tried to speak, everyone would laugh at me. I so much wanted to run back home to my family, to the village and friends, to the Arabic language. I cried on the phone to my father that he should come and get me, and he said that only the beginnings are hard, and that in few months I would speak Hebrew better than they do. I remember the first week, our literature teacher asked us to read The Catcher in the Rye by Salinger. It was the first novel I ever read. It took me several weeks to read it, and when I finished, I understood two things that changed my life. The first was that I could read a book in Hebrew, and the second was the deep understanding that I loved books. Very quickly, my Hebrew became nearly perfect. The boarding school library only had books in Hebrew, so I began to read Israeli authors. I read Agnon, Meir Shalev, Amos Oz, and I started to read about Zionism, about Judaism, and the building of the homeland, which is the Zionist term for building of the state of Israel and the society. During these years, I also began to understand my own story, and without planning to do so, I began to write about Arabs who live in an Israeli boarding school in the Western city, in a Jewish country. I began to write believing that all I have to do to change things would be to write the other side, to tell the stories that I heard from my grandmother, to write how my grandfather was killed in the Battle of Tira in 1948, how my grandmother lost all of our land, how she raised my father while she supported them as a fruit picker paid by the Jews. I wanted to tell in Hebrew about my father who sat in jail for long years with no trial for his political ideas. I wanted to tell the Israelis a story, the Palestinian story. Surely, when they read, they will understand. When they read, they will change. And all I have to do is write, and the occupation will end. I just have to be a good writer, and I will free my people from the ghettos they live in. Tell good stories in Hebrew, and I will be safe. Another book, another movie, another newspaper column, and another script for television, and my children will have a better future. Thanks to my stories, one day we will turn into equal citizens, almost like Jews. 25 years of writing in Hebrew and nothing has changed. 25 years clutching at hope, believing it is not possible that people can be so blind. 25 years during which I had few reasons to be optimistic, but continued to believe that one day this place in which both Jews and Arabs live together would be the one story when the story of the other is not denied. That one day the Israelis would stop denying the Nakba, the occupation, and the suffering of Palestinian people. That one day the Palestinians would be willing to forgive, and together we would build a place that was worth living in. 25 years that I'm writing 25 years that I'm writing and knowing bitter criticism from both sides. But last week I gave up. Last week something inside of me broke. When Jewish youth parade through the city shouting death to the Arabs and attacks Arabs only because they are Arabs, I understood that I had lost my little war. Listen to the politicians and the media, and I know that they are differentiating between blood and blood, between peoples. Those who have become the powers that say expressly what the most Israeli thinks. We are a better people than the Arabs. On panels that I participated in, it was said that Jews are superior people, more entitled to life. I despair to know that an absolute majority in the country does not recognize the rights of an Arab to live. After my last column, some readers beseeched that I be exiled to Gaza, threatened to break my legs, to kidnap my children. I live in Jerusalem and I have some wonderful Jewish neighbors and friends, but I still cannot take my children to day camps or to parks with their Jewish friends. My daughter protested furiously and said no one would know she is an Arab because of her perfect Hebrew, but I would not listen. She shut herself in her room and wept. Now I'm standing in front of my bookshelf, Salinger in hand, the one I read 14 years ago. I don't want to take any books. I decided I have to concentrate on my new language. I know how hard it is, almost impossible, but I must find another language to write in. My children will have to find another language to live in.
Wow. Ale teďka už přejdeme k Jicejníkové, opravdu přední arabistka, překladatelka z arabštiny do češtiny. Má za sebou přeložených tolik titulů, že já nemůžu ani začít jmenovat, takže nechám Jitku, aby začala i s tím představením svojí práce. A hlavně domluvali jsme se na tom, že by představila právě ty tituly palestinských autorů přeložených do češtiny Jitkou, ale možná i jinými.
Rozhodně jinými. Dobrý večer, tak mě pro změnu bylo řečeno, že mám mluvit česky, takže já doufám, že mi teda bude většina rozumět a zároveň musím říct, že mi přijde trochu zvláštní mluvit o překladech do češtiny v angličtině, tak snad mi to těch pár lidí, co neumí česky, odpustí. Já se budu snažit být úsporná. A na rozdíl teda od všech ostatních, já nemám žádné židovské kořeny. Já jsem z ateistické, v zásadě dělnické rodiny a dostala jsem se k arabštině opravdu čistě, protože mě fascinoval ten jazyk. A jak tady každý má nějaké svoje krásné poslání, tak já to svoje vnímám ve snaze nutit české nakladatele vydávat překlady z arabštiny, což se ještě teda před pár lety zdálo jako poměrně nadlidský úkol, protože nám tady vlastně dlouhou dobu nevycházely vlastně žádné knihy, žádná beletrie přeložená z arabštiny. A těžko říct, mě často lidé ptají proč a já to nevím. Já vždycky říkám, musíte se ptát těch nakladatelů, oni mi tvrdí, že se jim to nehodí do edičních řád a že by se to neprodávalo a já si myslím, že se toho úplně obyčejně bojí a myslím si, že strach vzniká primárně z nevědomosti. A pokud se nebudeme snažit poznat to, čeho se bojíme, tak se toho nikdy bát nemůžeme přestat. A stejně jako jsou důležité knihy, které přináší fakta, tak já jsem hluboce přesvědčená o tom, že jsou stejně důležité i knihy, které přináší příběhy. Protože si myslím, že vyprávění a příběhy jsou v nás všech tak strašně hluboce zakořeněné, že jsme si je vlastně začali povídat s tím prvním ohněm, kdy se tedy ty lidé sešli, naši dávní předkové, a začali si vyprávět. A z tohoto mého přesvědčení pramení i to jako tuchající snaha tady přibližovat českým čtenářům arabskou beletrii a ty příběhy těch obyčejných lidí, protože vždycky říkám, no logicky v těm zpravodajství se vždycky mluví o tom, co se děje a většinou o tom, co se dějí ty špatné věci, že jo? Protože o tom je zpravodajství, abychom věděli, co dělají politici a co se kde děje. A na ten obyčejný život už tam právě nezůstává to místo a já vidím to místo právě v těch příbězích. A věřím, že právě ty jsou tím klíčem pro to, abychom se přestali bát, protože opravdu česká společnost se bojí se Arabů, bojí se muslimů a já věřím, že to je jedna z hlavních cest, jak je přestat vnímat jako ta strašidelná dvouhlavá telata a začít v nich vidět obyčejné normální lidi, kteří žijí úplně obyčejné normální životy a chtějí úplně obyčejné normální věci, jako chceme my všichni. A Majda tady krásně, myslím, že budeme moc krásně ilustrovat tu disproporci mezi literaturou hebrejskojazyčnou, kterou máme v češtině k dispozici, a literaturou arabskojazyčnou. A i zůstaneme jenom vlastně v té Palestině, která paradoxně je v těch překladech druhá nejzastoupenější po Egyptě. A stále máme jako spoustu zemí, ze kterých nemáme nic. Nemáme jediný jemenský román, nemáme jediný ománský román, nemáme jediný jordánský román, nemáme libýský román. A když zůstaneme tedy v naší Palestině, abychom se jako neodchylovali jako někam jako zbytečně daleko, tak Kašua nám napsal 4 naprosto fantastické romány, ty knihy jsou skvělé, já je opravdu všem strašně moc doporučuji, kdo nečetl, poznamenejte si, jděte do knihovny, půjčte si, budete nadšení. Protože sice Majda z toho, co říká, tak to vyznívá, že to je všechno takový jako temný a depresivní, ale třeba tančící Arabové jsou nesmírně zábavní. Ono to je vlastně strašně humorný. Samozřejmě vy to budete číst, budete se u toho smát a je tam, a vždycky si jdete, no ale to je vlastně jako strašný, to čemu se směju. Ale je to fakt vtipný. No a když se otočíme na tu palestinskou stranu, na tu arabskojazyčnou stranu, tak máme všeho všudy 4 arabské nebo 4 palestinské autory přeložené z arabštiny. Takže máme 4 knihy od Kašuji, jenom od Kašuji, a ze všech palestinských autorů máme tedy 4 tituly aktuálně k dispozici, ale blízká se na lepší časy a k tomu já se dostanu. Ale začnu tedy tím, že určitě má smysl číst palestinskou literaturu, protože je velice přístupná. Ty příběhy a to, co tady máme k dispozici, nejsou nic tak odlišného od všeho ostatního, co člověk prostě běžně čte. A když byste tedy chtěli nějak systematicky začít načítat, tak já si nechám nakonec toho největšího a nejdůležitějšího palestinského básníka, protože mi bylo řečeno, že musím. Tak jsem teďka taková trochu, jako dám nějaký oslý můstek k těm svým dalším autorům. Ne. Když mluvíme o palestinské literatuře, musíme vždycky mluvit o Ghassánu Kanafáním. Ghassán Kanafání se narodil v roce 1932. Stejně jako mnozí další byl nucen po vyhlášení vzniku státu Izrael opustit domov, ale vrátil se zpátky. Byl to spoluzakladatel Organizace pro osvobození Palestiny, novinář, velký kritik politického defétismu, ale nevinil z té situace pouze Izrael a Židy. On to vnímal i jako zradu ostatních arabských států. A jeho život tedy byl předčasně ukončen v 8. července 1972, kdy v jeho autě v Bejrutu vybuchla bomba nastražená Mossadem a zabila tedy jeho a jeho 17letou Netež Lamís. A v češtině máme tedy k dispozici v překladu Ivana Hrbka, toho samého Ivana Hrbka, který přeložil Korán a spoustu dalších knih, výbor z jeho povídek, které tedy všechny jsou relativně na hraně novel a jmenuje se to Muži na slunci a jiné povídky. A vyšel tedy v roce 1982 a kromě tedy eponymních Mužů na slunci obsahuje jednu z nejvýraznějších, já budu říkat novel, protože mě ta povídka k tomu úplně nesedí, Kanafányho novel, která se jmenuje Návrat do Haify. A to je nesmírně silný příběh manželské dvojice Saida a Safii, kteří prchají, tedy začíná to ve chvíli, kdy je Haifa bombardovaná, oni utíkají a ve svém bytě v postýlce zůstane jejich asi půlroční syn. A oni tedy utečou, protože ve chvíli, kdy začne se prostě střílet, tak jsou venku a ten chlapeček tam zůstane. A oni se vlastně můžou vrátit do té Haify až ve chvíli, kdy se tedy otevřou ten most a oni můžou přijít zpátky po nějakých těch 25 letech. A vrací se zpátky do svého domova, kde v bytě, který opustili, nachází židovské manžele, Mariam a, já mám tady někde jméno, Mariam a jejího muže, Mariam a Efraima. A vysvětluje jim tedy ta Safia, že to byl jejich domov a jestli tam teda někdo nenašel to dítě, že by prostě strašně chtěla jako se po těch letech setkat s tím svým synem. A ukáže se tedy, že Efraim s Mariam toho chlapečka adoptovali, protože jim bylo řečeno, že tedy ten byt si můžou nechat, ale musí si nechat i to dítě. A ve chvíli, kdy oni tam tedy sedí a baví se s nimi, tak přijde ten jejich syn domů, který už se tedy nejmenuje Khalid, ale jmenuje se Dov a má na sobě uniformu izraelské armády, ve které momentálně slouží. A říká jim, že oni prostě nejsou jeho rodiče, že on je tedy Izraelec. A Safia se Saidem odcházejí a na konci, vlastně na svém závěru, ten Said říká ze své ženě, že ve chvíli, kdy oni přijížděli do té Haify, tak on doufal, že jejich druhorozený syn Chaldun neudělá žádnou hloupost a nevstoupí tedy, nepřidá se k bojovníkům, přidá se k fidájinům a vlastně, když odjíždí, tak vysloví tu naději, že ve chvíli, kdy oni odjeli, tak on to udělal a že tedy půjde bojovat. A vlastně všechny ty jeho povídky jsou jako velice silné, všechny jsou nějakým způsobem se točí kolem situace Palestinců a myslím si, že to je velice důležitá kniha. Potom vlastně máme v češtině už jenom výbor z palestinské poezie odporu, který se jmenuje Palestinská je flétna má, překládal ji Petráček, naprosto fantasticky, že on byl absolutně špičkový. Kromě toho, že byl skvělý arabista, tak byl špičkový překladatel. On překládal klasickou arabskou poezii, to taky nesmírně doporučuji, to jsou nádherné výbory. Akorát je velký problém, protože Palestinská je flétna má je v podstatě nesehnatelná, protože nikdy nešla do distribuce. Ona byla financována právě Palestinci a dá se sehnat různě, když máte velké štěstí, tak se dá sehnat v antikvariátu a kdybyste někdo chtěl a nikomu to na mě nepovíte a dáte mi mail, tak já vám ji pošlu, protože já jsem ji vydolovala z Klementína z konzervačního fondu a mám ji. Já to mám v PDF-ku.
Jo, takhle, okay, myslím, že máš.
Ale nesmíte to na mě říct.
Jak se to jmenuje?
Já to pak pošlu.
To stále
Kamera jede, klapka. Dobře, tak jo, tak nic jsem neřekla. No a vlastně poslední je teda ta knížka, maličkatá knížka, kterou jsem tady ve své kariéře, krátké kariéře Horsta Fuchse prezentovala před začátkem od palestinské autorky Adanii Šiblí, která tedy vyšla v češtině jako podružný detail. A je to knížka, se kterou jste se možná setkali, protože Adania tady v loni dvakrát byla v létě vystupovala na Mači a potom na Doxfallu. V Gulliveru s ní byla beseda. Ta knížka je malá rozsahem, ale hutná a velká obsahem. Ona se vlastně trochu nechvalně proslavila na frankfurtském veletrhu, který vlastně probíhal krátce po tom říjnovém útoku. A Adania tam měla převzít cenu od organizace Litprom, což je tedy což je společnost, která propaguje tvorbu afrických, asijských a latinskoamerických autorek, právě za německý překlad toho podružného detailu, pro který do té doby, originál vyšel už v roce 2017. A ona měla v tom Frankfurtu převzít cenu za ten německý překlad. A oni všichni, jako kritika do té doby nadšená z té knihy. Kniha je fantastická, je skvělá. No a najednou se to slavnostní předání zrušilo, s tím, že teda ředitel frankfurtského veletrhu prohlásil, že je antisemitská a každý, kdo ji četl, nevím, jestli ji někdo už četl, ale věřím, že si ji všichni přečtete, mi dá za pravdu, že je všechno jenom ne antisemitská. Antisemitská může připadat jenom těm, kdo neví, že se opravdu zakládá na skutečných událostech. A ta první část je až děsivě věrná dokumentům, které jsou tedy v izraelských vojenských archivech a byly odtajněny někdy kolem roku 2000. A o té události, ke které došlo v tom roce 1949 na stanovišti Nirim uprostřed Negevské pouště, napsal v roce 2003 liberální deník Haaretz, který vlastně ještě v té době sehnal pár účastníků, přímých účastníků oné situace, kdy tedy skupinka izraelských vojáků při pravidelné oblídce terénu v rámci zajišťování prostoru narazí na skupinku beduínů, muže postřílí, jedinou dívku, ženu, kterou tam najdou, zajmou a odvezou do tábora. Následuje prostě scéna, při které se řeší, co teda s tou holkou, který podle záznamu bylo něco mezi 12 až 16 lety, nevíme, kolik jí bylo, co s ní udělají. A dojde tedy k hlasování, kdy velitel stanoviště jim dává na výběr. Tak buď holku teda odevzdáme někde v táboře pod těma palestinskýma uprchlíkama, no a nebo může tady teda dělat v kuchyni a pak ji odvezeme, a nebo si tady s ní teda všichni užijeme a pak ji jako teda odlifrujeme pryč. A všichni teda jednohlasně, všichni ty muži v té jednotce souhlasí s druhou variantou, což je opravdu ale všechno v těch záznamech, všechny ty situace v té knize, které vám budou připadat, že jsou přitažené za vlasy a že to musí autorka přehánět, tak se opravdu staly. A musím říct, že při překládání to bylo dost jako náročné, protože já jsem se tu knihu předtím četla a věděla jsem, co se stane. A teď jako překladatel máte nějak rozvrženou tu práci a každý den k tomu sednete a uděláte prostě, já to mám rozpočítaný na stránky, že jsem systematický člověk. A teď jsem si říkala, tak jo, tak jdeme na to, tak dneska už se to jako stane. Protože oni teda skupinovně znásilní a zastřelí a zahrabou do mělkého hrobu a nechají tam. Což vlastně ani není jako, teď jsem nic jako nevyspojilovala, to prostě se ví, to je prostě jako známý fakt. No a vždycky jsem si říkala, tak kdy už teda ta scéna přijde, tak vždycky, když jako nepřišla, jsem si říkala, nepřišla, ale zase jsem věděla, že teda ten další den se k ní asi dostanu. Ale zároveň není vlastně potřeba se té knihy bát, ona spousta lidí říká, no to je ale jako hrozný téma, já vlastně o tom nechci číst. Chcete, ono to vlastně je popsaný velice, jako na to, co se tam stalo, je to popsaný velice decentně. A ta druhá část, jak už jsem předtím říkala, to vypráví bezejmenná, nebo se točí kolem bezejmenné hrdinky, která právě je taková jako neurotická osoba, která neustále nevědomky a nechtíc překračuje různé hranice a právě jí jako v životě fascinují spíš ty podružné detaily, pro které nevidí ten celkový obraz. Takže tam jsou takové jako zajímavé scény, kdy ona popisuje, jak ona, když vidí to dílo toho mistra, tak si spíš všimne, a teď cituju, toho mužšího hovnáce na tom obraze, než toho obrazu samotného. A s tímhletím jako si čte ten článek v tom Haaretzu a zaujme jí to, že teda k té vraždě došlo přesně 25 let před jejím narozením. A úplně jako začne být posedlá osudem té dívky a rozhodne se, že musí zjistit, co se jí odehrávalo hlavou předtím, než se to stalo. Takže ona si jí podaří sehnat si občanku, tam je krásně jako popsaná mimoděk ta realita toho jak nemůžete vlastně toho omezení toho pohybu, což my si tady vůbec neumíme představit, že nesedneme do vlaku a nemůžeme prostě, když chceme, tak sedneme do vlaku a jedeme do Opavy, anebo jedeme do Berlína. A nebo jedeme prostě, nevím, na Sázavu. Tak takhle to tam jako nefunguje a je to tam krásně popsaný. A ona se opravdu jako nakonec si jí podaří dostat poblíž toho někdejšího stanoviště a teď už je dál spoilerovat nebudu, protože si to určitě všichni chcete přečíst. Já jsem tak. No a teď se vlastně dostaneme k těm knihám, k těm pozitivním informacím, protože kromě teda těchto 3 titulů budeme mít už brzo naprosto zásadní palestinský, a nejenom palestinský, ale zásadní román i v celém kánonu moderní arabské literatury. A to jsou podivné události kolem zmizení Saida, smolaře a pesoptimisty, které napsal spisovatel Emil Habíbí, který se tedy narodil v roce 1922, takže je tedy ze zmiňovaných nejstarší, zemřel v roce 1996. A Said, pesoptimista, je velice unikátní knihou, protože je to satirická kniha. Arabové satiru píšou strašně málo. Protože prostě ten život a ta situace úplně nevybízí k tomu, aby jsme se teda jako úplně smáli. Ale Said je naprosto fantastický, on bývá často přirovnáván a nejenom českou literární kritikou, ale i světovou k dobrému vojáku Švejkovi. A opravdu ho jako mnohdy připomíná, on je ve své naivitě a nesmírné snaze se zavděčit na tomu nově vzniknému izraelskému státu, tak furt se dostává do strašně blbých situací a pak skončí ve vězení. Ale je to opravdu naprosto fantastická kniha, kterou teď momentálně rediguje můj úžasný kolega Petr Felčer. Já jsem odevzdávala překlad před 14 dny a měla by tedy do léta být v nakladatelství Dybuk. A opravdu vřele doporučuji si ji pořídit, protože je to opravdu nesmírně zajímavá a přestože tedy vlastně 50 let stará kniha, protože vyšla v roce 74, tak je pořád extrémně živá. A vlastně ten humor, který vychází buď z těch absurdních situací nebo z jazyka, tak vlastně nezestárl ani o den. Že to vždycky říkal pan profesor Veselý, co nás měl na fakultě na dějiny, vždycky říkal, že historie se trapně opakuje. A měl naprostou pravdu. A jediné, co tak si myslím, že v té Palestině je to jenom horší a Emil Habíbí, který byl velký zastánce soužití, mírového soužití mezi Palestinci a Izraelci, tak by asi hodně koukal. Kolem něj vlastně byla velká kontroverze, protože on kromě toho, že tedy v roce 1990 dostal nejvyšší ocenění OOP za literaturu, tak dostal i v roce 1992 nejvyšší izraelské literární ocenění a on si pro tu cenu přišel a vzal si ji. Takže schytal ohromnou vlnu kritiky, ale on na to říkal, ale já si prostě myslím, že je lepší jako po sobě jako číst ty knihy a vrhat po sobě ty slova a ne ty kameny. A opravdu vlastně do konce života byl velký zastánce míru a věřil a doufal v to, že prostě se ho jeho lidé dočkají. A poslední, o kom budu mluvit, a pravděpodobně největší z jmenovaných je Mahmud Darvíš. Já myslím, že asi tady není nikdo, kdo se s tímto jménem nesetkal. Mahmud Darvíš je obecně, a na tom se všichni shodneme, považován za největšího palestinského básníka a patří k největším moderním arabským básníkům vůbec. On tedy žil v letech 41 až 2008. Byl to autor palestinské deklarace nezávislosti, celoživotní novinář a napsal tedy, pro něj vlastně v tom jeho díle on píše o pocitech, jaké to je vlastně být Palestinec, o té snaze, o té touze po těch kořenech a po té zemi, ale zároveň se tam nesmírně promítá ten pocit toho odcizení. A v češtině máme k dispozici dva jeho tituly. Deník všedního smutku, což je sbírka esejí, které překládal pan profesor Kropáček a vyšly v roce 88. A druhá velice pozitivní zpráva dnešního večera je, že v nakladatelství Rubá to vyjde letos reedice, která bude kompletní, protože v tom původním vydání chybí jedna esej, bude překládat Petr Felčer. A přestože já jsem teda se dušovala, že bude jenom, že nebudu dávat ukázky, tak vám ale jednu ukázku kratoučkou z jednoho eseje přečtu, abyste věděli, že to je opravdu něco, co stojí za to číst. Stojím v srdci světa, vyrvu si paži a mávám jí ve větru. Proměním ji v míč a hraju si s vámi. Hmetu vám ji do očí, vy soudci civilizace. Ne pro vlast, ne pro národ, ani ne zemsty, ale prostě jen tak. Jsem totiž asijský živočich a tak se mi líbí užívat těla. Cvičím si je, aby se znovu rozhýbalo po ochrnutí, které trvalo 4 století. Roztrhám si je na kousky, abych vás pobavil. To je má jediná svoboda. Proč se bouříte proti mé sebevraždě, vy odborníci masového pobíjení? Vy, kteří měníte děti v uhlí. Zabíjíte a tedy jste. A já páchám sebevraždu, tedy také jsem. Od nynějška už nedovolím nikomu než sám sobě, aby mě zabíjel. Znáte mě? Zachránil jsem se spod vašich pum. Znáte mě? Mléko agentury UNRWA mi v žilách nestvořilo krev, ale dynamit. Potrava, kterou jste nám dali, se vám vrací zpět. Počkej. No, ale Mahmud Darvíš byl primárně básník a na svém kontě měl přes 30 básnických sbírek a v češtině bohužel tedy máme možnost, bohužel a bohu dík, máme tedy možnost s jednou z nich se seznámit, kterou vyšla v roce 2007 pod názvem Přicházím do stínu tvých očí. Překládal ji Burhan Kalak a my jsme se s Janou domluvili, že příležitostí dnešního večera budeme spíš se zaměříme na největší Darvíšovu báseň, která by se dala přeložit název jako Oslava vysokého stínu. A je to nesmírně dlouhá epická báseň, kterou Darvíš napsal v roce 1984, často se o ní mluví jako o oslavě Bejrutu. Je to báseň, která čítá v originále téměř 1000 řádek. A je to vlastně nesmírně silné čtení, protože on navzdory tomu, co bývá běžné v arabské poezii, tak on píše velice úsporně. Ty řádky jsou krátké, ten text graduje, on využívá nesmírně intenzivně refrén a to sdělení se vlastně pohybuje na škále od elegie ke zjevení. A on si tam vlastně bere postupně na paškál panarabismus, romantizaci revoluce, diplomatický iluze a vlastně celou kolektivní identitu. A nejznámější pasáž nebo nejcitovanější pasáž začíná veršem o maskách. A za těma maskama se podle Darvíše skrývají vlády a slogany a ideologie. A vlastně i mezinárodní morálka a jazyk samotný. A protože to všechno je v okamžiku katastrofy vlastně vidět v tom naprosto holém světle. A já mám tady teda připravený kousek té básně přeložený do češtiny, jsem dělala já, a máme ho tady anglicky, ale já jsem si teďka, jak jsem vlastně celý ten večer tady, jsme se tady poslouchali vlastně různé lidi z různých míst napříč časem a prostorem, tak já si myslím, a nevím, jestli se mnou, nebo doufám, že se mnou budete souhlasit, že je nesmírně důležité, aby tu zazněla arabština. A já bych chtěla poprosit Moatasema, jestli by mohl tu část přečíst arabsky.
سقط القناع عن القناع عن القناع سقط القناع لا إخوة لك يا أخي لا أصدقاء يا صديقي لا قلاع لا الماء عندك لا الدواء ولا السماء ولا الدماء ولا الشراع ولا الأمام ولا الوراء حاصر حصارك لا مفر سقطت ذراعك فالتقطها واضرب عدوك لا مفر وسقطت قربك فالتقطني واضرب عدوك بي فأنت الآن حر حر وحر قتلاك أو جرحاك فيك ذخيرة فاضرب بها اضرب عدوك لا مفر أشلاؤنا أسماؤنا حاصر حصارك بالجنون وبالجنون ذهب الذين تحبهم ذهبوا فإما أن تكون أو لا تكون سقط القناع عن القناع عن القناع سقط القناع ولا أحد إلاك في هذا المدى المفتوح للأعداء والنسيان فاجعل كل متراس بلد لا أحد سقط القناع عرب أطاعوا رومهم عرب وباعوا روحهم عرب وضاعوا سقط القناع. Thank you.
Masce spadla maska masky. Maska spadla. Bratře, nemáš bratra. Kamaráde můj, nemáš kamarády. Nemáš hrady. Nemáš co pít, čím se vyléčit. Pryč je nebe a pryč je krev i plachta na plák. Nemáš po a nemáš před. Obklíčení. Odtud ven cesta nevede. Spadla ti paže, seber ji a udeří nepřítele. Odtud ven cesta nevede. Kousek od tebe spadl jsem já. Seber mě a udeř mnou nepřítele. Teď jsi svobodný. Svobodný jsi celé. Svobodný. Tvý zabití a zranění municí staly se v tvém těle. Udeří nepřítele. Odtud ven cesta nevede. Po našich torzech dostáváme jména. Šílenstvím, ať jsou obklíčena, šílenstvím. Museli odejít ti, které jsi miloval. Museli odejít a ty teď můžeš být či nebýt. Masce spadla maska masky. Maska spadla a nikdo jiný než ty tu není. V prostoru otevřeném nepřátelům zapomnění. Ve vlast proměň všechny barikády a nikdo jiný než ty tu není. Spadla maska, Arabové poslouchali Římany, Arabové své duše prodali, Arabové byli a zmizeli. Maska spadla.
And because this is the end, and we want everyone to have experience from the words of Mahmoud Darwish, we will let Moatasem to read it also in English so everyone can understand.
The mask fell from the mask from the mask. The mask fell. You have no brothers, my brother, no friends, my friend. There's no fortresses. I will repeat. The mask fell from the mask from the mask. The mask fell. You have no brothers, my brother, no friends, my friend. There are no fortresses. You have no water, no medicine, no sky, no blood, no sail. No ahead and no behind. Besiege your siege, there is no escape. Your arm fell, pick it up and strike your enemy, there is no escape. And I fell beside you, pick me up and strike your enemy with me. You are free now, free and free. You're dead, you're wounded within you, are ammunition. Strike with them, strike your enemy, there is no escape. Our scattered limbs are our names. Besiege your siege with madness, with madness. Those you loved are gone, they went away. So either be or do not be. The mask fell from the mask from the mask. The mask fell. No one remains but you in this horizon open to enemies and oblivion. So make every barricade a homeland. No one, the mask fell. Arabs obeyed their Romans. Arabs parted away their souls. Arabs and vanished. The mask fell. Thank you.
Takže jsme se dostali až na konec. Doufám, že jste měli příjemnou a obohacující zkušenost, že jste si odnesli jak možná nové informace, tak ten pocit, ten feeling, jaké to je být Palestincem. A byl to dlouhý večer, ale dejme ještě 10 minut na prostor na otázky a potom, když budete mít další, můžete přijít za námi. Ale jestli máte teďka někdo, if someone has questions, it was a long evening, so let's do just like 10 minutes and then everyone can come and have more questions, but we don't want to hold everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your scholarship and everyone who participated or who organized. Truly heart-touching it was. And I just want to mention a few things what Lauren King mentioned about the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism. So when I look at it, honestly I start thinking what is not anti-Semitism? Like even if we utter a word, it is anti-Semitism. And it's so absurd that criticizing the policies of a government, criticizing Israel is considered anti-Semitism or anti-Jewishism, whereas there are more than 56, 57 Muslim countries. If we criticize them, do we consider it Islamophobia? There are so many absurdities which people believe in, which I feel really strange. For example, one of them is we are here in Czech Republic. When normally I talk to Czechs, they say about this issue of Palestine. Normally they said this land belongs to Israelis. And when I ask them, why do you think it belongs to Israelis? They say, God promised to them. And when I ask them, do you believe in God? They say no. There are so many absurdities like this, and then people don't even realize what's happening around us, and not everyone digs deeper into it and tries to search for the truth. Thank you so much for organizing such events whereby people come together, share their thoughts, and it really is amazing. Thanks again. And I have just one question. As you said, you turned from Zionism to kind of anti-Zionism. So it happened.
Not kind of, anti-Zionism.
Okay, amazing. That's even better.
Thank you.
So does that happen after doing the translations of novels of Said Keshov, or it happened before? And how do you feel? What's the difference now? Because it's such a big thing. It's such an eye-opener to go from Zionist to anti-Zionist. So please, sorry for the long time.
Thank you for the question. I will first react to the first part of what we were speaking about, the IHR definition, because I feel that it's important to mention that there actually exists another competing definition of Zionism, which was made after the IHRA definition was created and started to be used politically as a tool against Palestinian, pro-Palestinian activism. There was a group of tens or maybe even hundreds or 200 actually even Jewish and non-Jewish scholars of Jewish history, of genocide and so on, who wrote this another definition, which is called, or the text is called Jerusalem Declaration. Jerusalem Declaration. You can find it up, and there have been struggles to promote this other definition that clearly is much better because it tries to make it clear what is why anti-Zionism is not anti-Semitism. You can read it, it's very well argumented and very clearly written, but actually there is no hope to push it through politically. My personal opinion is that we do not need any such definition. There is racism, there is bigotry, which is something general, and you do not need to define like the special kinds of it. Either the racism or the bigotry is addressing Arabs, Jews, black people, or people of color, and so on and so forth. You do not need definition for each kind of racism. This is my opinion. And to your question, it's a personal one, because my political shift did not occur thanks to the translations. I came to Said Kashua when I was already like a little bit turned towards, or I was on my way to anti-Zionism, which is my stance right now. The turn, as I maybe very shortly said, started, and this is something that I am not proud of. This is actually something I'm quite ashamed of, that the only way I could be persuaded or to start listening to the other story, it could happen to me only by listening to Jewish anti-Zionists or Israeli anti-Zionists. These were the people that I was able to believe and to take seriously what they are speaking about. Because I actually did fall in the trap that whenever someone criticizes Israel from a non-Jewish perspective, there must be some bad feeling towards Jews. This is what I genuinely believed. And when I finally came to the position that I could see all the story of Israel-Palestine through Palestinian eyes, I understood how deeply I was, I don't know, maybe even like a racist in my abilities to listen to testimonies that are not from my side, that I was not willing to hear them, I was not willing to believe them. This is something that I'm actually quite ashamed of. And I want to mention also, because you said that it's not such a common story that someone goes from Zionism to anti-Zionism. Actually, I think it's quite a common story, and it becomes more and more common, like in these last 3 years with the genocide in Gaza. But it was a movement that started way before that, and even I started way before that to understand the realities. There are many people, there are thousands, maybe tens of thousands of people, mostly in United States and Northern America, but also in Europe, of people who just start to understand, and they support each other, and it's something that grows. And interesting thing, not so surprising, I have never heard a story of someone anti-Zionist turning Zionist. I think it's telling one.
Magda, I want to, as your Jewish sister too, and as a fellow scholar, I just want to salute and honor your courage and your scholarship and you following that call of the sacred, because that's not an easy thing to do. It costs you relationships, it costs you peace of mind, it costs you professional opportunities, and it's not easy. I just want to recognize that, and I just want to say thank you for that. Woo! And it's, I just want to say you are right that IHRA definition, what isn't in there? And it's written that way on purpose, so that it's broad and that it's not so specific, so that you can just kind of make it up as you go along. And there is, when I'm having a bad day, there is a clip from a news show that I will just put on and watch in perpetuity because it's so funny. There's a political commentator. He used to be a heart surgeon, actually, Bassem Youssef. He is from Egypt. And he just started making political commentary, in 2010. He was getting ready to go and do the specialized residency, and the day that came, he was also offered his own political news show commentary. So he took the news show. He didn't take the residency, but he is often on U.S. news programs to come up against somebody who is the spokesperson from the Israeli government. And there's a great clip where he is going up against Jonathan Conricus, who is the IDF spokesperson, where Jonathan's just going on and on, about, we're still like the world's most moral army. on and on. And so Bassem just interrupts him and he says, stop Zionizing us. You know, he's like, you know, we can see through what you're doing. And he said, you know, you're like the rap artist Shaggy, right? You have this song, Wasn't Me, right? And he's like, but we saw you bomb the clinic. Wasn't me, but I saw it. I was there. My cousin took the video. Wasn't me. And he's like, and then you say, when we're like, no, but I was there. I saw it myself. Oh, your optic nerve is anti-Semitic. Right? It's like, so this is where we are, right? And I often think about how this idea of nationalism, right, this idea of that is not a new thing, right? My favorite quote from the French Revolution, Voltaire, right, in 1793 said, if they can convince you of absurdities, they can convince you to commit atrocities. And here we are.
Thank you. That's like 10 minutes, but let's take, Millie.
Hi, thanks for our talks today. I just wanted to ask if somebody knew about Larry Ellison, this American billionaire who's really behind the Israel project. And so, like, the more I learn about Israel, the more I understand that it's actually, or Zionism, is actually a story of how to hide money. And that's kind of why they're coming after us so hard. So it's actually like any criticism of the rich is actually what is anti-Semitic. And I wondered if anyone wanted to say something about that.
I don't just think it's anti-Semitism. So I want to echo what Magda was talking about. At a certain point, you know, we don't need to classify hate crimes. A hate crime is a hate crime is a hate crime. Racism is racism is racism. Just because it's against one group doesn't make it doubly wrong. It's wrong to begin with, right? And what I see represented with the Zionist ideology, right? Because that is ideology, is ideology that can be, like we were saying earlier, it's any kind of ism, right? It's nationalism, it's fascism. Fill it in. It is fealty to the ideology that is demanded, right? And usually those who are running the ruling ideology are also those with the money. It is the money and power that's always together. And the lesson, I think we were talking about this the other day, the lesson that I hope that people in Minneapolis, that people in the United States got from the protests that were happening in Minneapolis is that when we're talking about racism, like so many people who you see, you know, who are Trumpers, you know, everybody is majority white. There are others in there. But, you know, the pinnacle of what we uphold in the United States as, you know, angelic and purity and all of that, a white woman and a white woman's tears. Renee Good was shot in the face in broad daylight because she dared to question ideology and step out of line. And then the same was true with Alex Pretty, who, you know, were supposed to rah, 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 military, right? And Alex Pretty was a veteran, and he dared to go against the ideology. So for me, when I'm thinking about it, and I am following as a social scientist, I am looking for patterns to identify. What I always see there is the proximity of whatever the dominant ideology is, and then propping that up is the system of power behind it, which is also holding up, right, the means of production. And so for me, it's that marriage of ideology, power, and wealth, and that applies to anything. That, you know, Nazism, capitalism, colonialism, all of the isms.
Last question, because it's already 9, but thank you.
Já se zeptám česky, mě by jenom zajímalo, že nevím, proč jakoby genocida v Sudánu je tolik jako odkloněná mediální pozornosti, že vlastně je to 15 milionů lidí, je to plný sexuálního násilí, vzorce, který destabilizuje celou společnost. Sexuální násilí se nevyhýbá ani dětem a my o ní nevíme vlastně skoro nic, kromě pár organizací, které se jako zabývají genocidou. Ale kdyby ty tady nebyly, tak o ní vlastně toho tolik nevíme a přitom je největší na světě. Tak čím si vysvětlujete, že média jí tu pozornost nedali?
And ongoing, are you going to take that?
Já bych jenom k tomu řekla, že úplně to samé, nebo ne to samé, ale stejná likvidace národa probíhá v Xinjiangu s Ujgury. A taky se o tom nemluví. A ty, co systematicky dlouhodobí a Čína na tom pracuje opravdu intenzivně. Je prostě to bohužel.
Largely, I think in Western, largely,
sorry.
In Western media, again, we're talking about, just like Millie's question about why, we're talking about people who are holding control, right, over media and the access that we get to information, right? Sudan has already been colonized, and it is the ongoing colonization and outside interference that has continued to uphold the rupture that is happening there. Unfortunately, what is happening in Sudan is a proxy genocide, right? It is not, we do not see the United States there. We don't see Britain there, right? We don't see Israel there. But who do we see there who is supporting them, right? We see the UAE, right? Well, who is tied really closely to the UAE? It's Israel, it's the United States, it's everybody in the Middle East who had like sworn their fealty to Israel to continue to get US aid dollars. Right now what we see and what we have chosen to exploit is what the people who are controlling the media want us to see and what's out there. And who controls the media? Well, if you're in the United States, you have all of the billionaires who are controlling it. And in fact, like Rupert Murdoch just bought another conglomerate today, and so we have about 3 billionaires who are controlling our entire media and our entire social media. If you break down, like we also have to remember, like my point, we're seeing what people want us to see. If you are on a college campus, if you, for example, one of the college campuses where I was, we have a huge Sudanese contingency. Every time we hold an event where we are talking about genocide, it's there. I belong to a group, a global health coalition called Doctors Against Genocide. And every Sunday we have reports on the ground from public health workers and medical doctors who are in Sudan, who are in Congo, who are in Ethiopia, and who are in Gaza and the West Bank. It is important that we see all of them as linked. It is about resources, it's about power and control. But again, we are getting the things and the urgency of what people want us to see. Unfortunately, no one in Sudan has really strong wealth and enough to employ lobbying organizations or have a super funded PAC, right, a political action committee, like AIPAC. If they did, I think it would be a different story. But it is, again, it's about power and the proximity to power. And that's what gets you recognition and airtime. And that's horrible, but I'm really glad that you brought that up. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So in the end, I just want to thank you so much, all of you. Excuse my chaotic person. I know some of you were told Czech, some of you were told English. I'm sorry again. But I think we passed it all fine. Everyone understood. And it was an amazing evening, amazing speakers, really. And I have to tell you, Lori is staying in Prague till 26, and she will give one more talk next Monday. It was gonna be at the university. I didn't have a chance to tell you before the talk. mean, Lori knows that she's going to give a talk, but it was supposed.
By the way,
It was supposed to, the change here it comes. It was supposed to be inside of the university. And because, of course, there's some bureaucratic obstacles right now. You know what I mean? So with the students group, we decided instead of just waiting for the leadership of the university to tell us one day before that it cannot take place inside, we will just move outside because it's supposed to be 27 degrees anyway. So we will meet in the park by Rudolfinum. I will put it tomorrow on the event, this information. So Monday, I believe 6 o'clock, but don't take me for my word for it. Check on Friends of Palestine, Přátelé Palestiny, Sdružení Přátelé Palestiny, and we will put it on the map this time correctly. Yes, sorry. So you can all find us this time.